Well, it's good to be back with you for another day of Bible study. My name is Kevin. I have the privilege of serving here at Christ Table as lead clergy. So glad that you're here with us this morning. If you'd like more information about Christ Table, you can visit the URL. It's right up there, www.christstable.today. If you'd like more information about this study in particular, then where you need to go is the URL that is right there in front of me, go.christstable.today / what is that? Game on. Go.christstable.today/game on. There you can find it. More information about this study. You can download a free PDF of both this study as well as a youth guide that goes along kind of with this study as well. All of those are completely free, no strings attached. Love to make those available to you absolutely free. If you'd like a printed copy of those, there's information on there about how you can get those as well as we work through the 6 pieces in the game of chess. In this game on, the game is chess that we're talking about here. We are in our 6th and final week, which means that we are also diving into our 6th and final game piece in the game of chess. 5 days on each game piece, 6 game pieces, 30 days. Today we're on day 26, and we're going to be jumping into the text in 2 Corinthians, took a little bit more effort than it should have to get that out. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9. Game piece that we are talking about this week is the king, the largest and most important piece in the game of chess. Though, as we discussed in yesterday's study, even though it is the largest and maybe perhaps the most important piece in the game of chess, it is certainly not the most powerful piece in the game of chess. In fact, almost all of the other pieces in the game of chess are more powerful than the king itself. The king, like the pawn, can only move one space from the start of the game to the end of the game. The king can only move one space, but it can, unlike the pawn, move in any direction that it wants. And so you can see there on that game board right there to the left that the king here can move to any of those red spaces. One space, forward, backward, diagonal. In any of those 4 directions diagonally, the king can move, which does give the king some ability to make its way across the board to get out of difficult situations, but really does not make the king a piece that's very helpful at all in any way, shape, or form strategically in offense. And so the king, almost all the time on the game of chess, is a defensive character trying to defend itself, probably not going to be used to attack. That puts it in way too far dangerous of a position. And so the thing about the king is that the king, because of its inability to really protect itself, needs to rely on other individuals in the community of chess pieces around it in order to protect it. So even a piece as lowly and as seemingly insignificant as the pawn to the king is an extremely important piece, because the pawn is able to in many ways block, tackle, defend, and even in moments, if necessary, sacrifice itself on behalf of the king. And so the king is reliant on those around him for its very life. Can't, shouldn't, is unable to do everything alone, which forces teamwork. I am not one of those individuals who do a great job sometimes in teamwork. If I can do something on my own, I am oftentimes more prone to doing something on my own rather than just simply choosing teamwork because it's fun to work with other people. I will admit that growing up in school, I found that teamwork and working with other people was far more work, far more effort, and oftentimes felt like it led to worse results working in teams than if I'd just been able to do all of the work and have all the responsibility on my own. So it created this mentality in me sometimes where teamwork is not necessarily the thing that I would initially gravitate towards. And sometimes as an adult, that has quite frankly been to my detriment because I end up trying to do things alone that I should not be doing alone. And when it comes to the spiritual realm, whenever it comes to God, whenever it comes to the Bible, there are lots of conversations and commands in there about not going it alone. In fact, salvation itself, something that I was taught, was on the individual. The Bible teaches salvation as part of a community, not an individual decision, but your community, your family, the society around you, that things rise and fall together, that when the tide rolls in and one boat goes up, all of the boats in the harbor go up. Whenever the tide comes out and one boat falls, all of the boats in the harbor fall. And so we all rise and fall together, that we are all interconnected and our fortunes or misfortunes all come together as part of a group. And that is played out so many times in the game of chess because the king cannot go it alone. The king must rely on others in the team in order to be able to do its job and to do its job well. So whenever we come to this idea of the king and reliance on other people, one of the things that it teaches us, or it should teach us in life, not just in the game of chess, is that real strength comes from recognizing your limitations and not from trying to appear invincible. There are many people in life who I know and who you probably know as well, who go through life trying to act as though they are a king. Live like kings, act like kings, treat others like less than a king. That's not healthy. You can't do that in the game of chess because you're going to fail, and I would suggest that you can't do that in the game of life because you're going to fail as well. Real strength, it comes from being honest about your limitations. The strongest people that I know recognize their limits, recognize their limitations, and it changes the way that they interact with the world, and it changes the way that they interact with each other, and they become far better people, far more valuable people, far more enjoyable people to be around because they are more real, they're more authentic. Folks who try to appear invincible, we know you're not invincible. If a king were to try to pretend to be invincible, that king is going to fall. If you try and play your king in the game of chess like the king is invincible and come out on the attack from the very beginning, acting as though you can't get harmed, that is going to be a very short game of chess because you are going to be quickly proven that your king is invincible, not invincible. I'm not sure. I don't think invincible is a word. Maybe it is. I'm supposed to look that up after this. Be honest about your limitations. You got to be honest about the king's limitations if you're going to play a good game of chess and not try to appear invincible. And I would suggest that in life as well, it's far better for you to be honest about your limitations rather than try to appear to be invincible. Why do we do that? Well, we do that in the game of life oftentimes because of insecurities. We're insecure. We don't want others to see us as weak. For some reason, weakness to us translates as being something negative, something to be avoided, something that is potentially harmful to us or leaves us exposed. Oftentimes because we don't want to trust other people or we can't trust other people, or we believe that we can't trust other people because it's never been proven to us that we can. This isn't the way of Jesus. This isn't the way of the Master. This isn't the way of faith. The way of faith is to build trust, to be a type of person who is trustworthy, and to take the risk of trusting other people as well. And by not pretending that we are more than we are, and part of not pretending that we are more than we are is part of recognizing and admitting that we are not built to go life alone. The world around us isn't designed that way, and we are not built that way either. Paul alludes to this in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9. Whenever on behalf of God, he says, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." This is what Paul heard to him about God, or from God about him. My grace is sufficient for you, and my power is made perfect in weakness. there is this idea in Christianity that is promoted by Paul, is promoted by Jesus, is promoted throughout Scripture, that there is a necessary reliance on things outside of ourselves for us to be able to be our best and to live our best life. That we need something greater than ourselves. Here in the beginning of this verse, God's grace for those moments where we don't meet the need or where we misstep or we stumble. Whenever we are weak, God's power is made perfect in that weakness. Or whenever we are weak, we proclaim that God exists and that he loves us. And so in the Christian world, weakness is not seen as a weakness, but a strength. Vulnerability is not seen as being something to be avoided, but something to be embraced. Because in doing so, it recognizes that there are powers and strengths and needs beyond ourselves. It recognizes in the world around us that there is a God and that we are not that God. That's a difficult thing. And I think that that is part of the reason why oftentimes we try to appear as though we are not weak or that we are invincible or that we don't need anybody else, is because there's this drive, this desire for us to be the center, the strongest, no failure, to have all of these godlike qualities. There's only one God, and you're not it. And I'm not it. I can remember this song by Stephen Curtis Chapman, his strength is perfect when our strength is gone. He'll carry us when we can't carry on. Raised in his power, the weak become strong. His strength is perfect. His strength is perfect. This song is a classic song, one of the most memorable times that I remember this song. Some of you will have heard me tell this story. I was living in Dallas, Texas, had just moved out of the house, out of college, was living alone, really, truly on my own for the first time ever, and was completely and utterly failing. Everything was going wrong. Was at the end of my rope. Money had run out. Hope had run out. All of the things that I had moved to Dallas for were kind of falling apart, and I was falling apart. And I lived in an area of Dallas where nobody spoke English, so I had no community, and the community around me, I had no ability to communicate with, and they had no ability to communicate with me. Lived in this apartment complex, this very rent inexpensive apartment complex, which came with a whole lot of chaos because of that. And I can remember laying in bed one night and praying and just being broken and hearing, I never heard before this moment or after this moment anything from the neighbors next to me, and I knew that the neighbors next to me did not speak English. Nobody around me spoke English, but hearing this song by Stephen Curtis Chapman coming through the walls as I was just broken and in tears and praying, his strength is perfect. Stephen Curtis Chapman, when our strength is gone, he'll carry us when we can't carry on. And I tell you, in that moment, I thought I was not going to be able to carry on. Raised in his power, the weak become strong. His strength is perfect. His strength is perfect. Oftentimes in life, I was going through life in this moment thinking my strength is perfect. My strength is perfect. And I was disabused of that idea very quickly. And every time that I try to rethink that again, I'm disabused of that idea again, that my strength is perfect. Life teaches me, probably not God, probably not the people around me, just life itself teaches me that my strength is not perfect. And if I'm reliant on my own strength, I am not going to be able to carry on from day to day or through the things that come up in life. I'm going to have to rely on strength that I don't have. And I would say that that would be the strength of power of faith in God, as well as for me, the power of the community and strength of the community around me. God's strength, I believe the Bible teaches, shows up best whenever we stop pretending to have everything figured out. For some of us, this is a real big important need, right? We say we need God's strength, we need God to show up, but we pretend to have everything all figured out like we don't actually need God. God's strength shows up best whenever we stop pretending to have everything figured out. And so it's been good to be with you today for the study. Before we go, I do want to put up one of the questions from that study guide that you can get at go.christstable.today/gameon. There are other questions there, other materials that are going to help you dive more deeply into today's study. I would encourage you to go take advantage of those. But one of the ones I just thought that we would, for everybody, throw up here, and would love to see your answers in the comments or in the chat, wherever you're watching, whether it's live or by delay. Where do you need to practice asking for help instead of struggling alone? And it's a bit of a personal question. You may resist putting the real answer to that online, and that's okay. But if you can and be vulnerable enough, in order to put that answer out there online, would love to hear those as well. Where do you need to practice asking for help instead of struggling alone? All right. It's been good to be with you today. Looking forward to being back with you tomorrow as we continue on this series and this study. But until that time, happy reading.